Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, learn, and tell stories. And let's ramble on a bit. I was in Lima? Yeah, Lima, finishing out Lima before my next adventure onto Hawaii. And I was walking around, I checked out another boardwalk that was apparently popular in Lima, but when I went up there, there was a river. It was a river boardwalk. But as far as I saw, it was all rubble and garbage, just all along this tiny little riverbank. And there wasn't even like a public path that I could walk down and along. It was all blocked off by a bunch of chain link fences. So, yeah, kind of tied in with how I feel about Lima. And I just kept walking and walked around and got an ice cream, I think, and then sat in a park and watched a bird gather twigs for its family, which was pretty fun, or for its nest anyway. It had really bright blue eyes, like crazy bright blue eyes, and it liked all the twigs near where I was sitting. So I just sat and ate an ice cream and watched this little bird flip down, check out the twigs, pick one up, sort of like heft it, and then fly off. I did that for 30 minutes and then headed back. Oh, I did try a Pisco Sour, I think. They were selling them in the supermarket, so I grabbed one of those, but it was just sugary vodka, whatever, sugary rum or something, so not too into it. The ice cream was also terrible, so so I didn't get any more ice cream while I was in Peru, because it just wasn't very good, like all processed fake Cornetto ice creams. I don't even know if I like the real Cornetto anymore, because I've had so many of the fake crappy Cornettos, I can't even remember if the real Cornetto tastes that bad or if it's good. I remember it being good, but it's been some time. Oh, maybe I can get one while I'm in Hawaii. So there is not as much chicha morada in Lima, the purple corn drink with like fruit and sugar, and I really like the chicha morada, the purple one, more than the regular yellow chicha that everybody gives away. But I guess morada, I don't know, maybe it's more expensive or whatever, but I only had it once. I only saw it once while I was in Lima. I think I saw a couple signs that had it, but in Cusco, it's like 50-50, and tons of places advertise the chicha morada. But I only actually got it in one place. At Tommy's, of course, with the best dang food in Lima, at Mercado Pastor Market. And when I got it, Monica poured it out, his like grandma-ish waitress there, who's there a few days a week. And she poured it out, and I was like, ooh, chicha, yeah. And then she turned back to Tommy, and she was like, he just said, ooh, chicha, yeah. He likes chicha. And, it was pretty funny. She's very funny. She's very busy, anxious, like moving around very fast and getting everything done. But she forgot to give me my fork and spoon. But luckily, one of the other regulars, who was sitting in front of me at the next table, without even looking behind him, just grabbed his utensils and handed them back to me behind himself without turning his head or anything, and I just grabbed the bucket of utensils and got a couple for myself and said, thank you. Mucho gracias, amigo. And that was pretty cool. So I had great food at Tommy's again, of course. There was another regular a couple days later, and she was asking me how much I made and what I did when I traveled, and like how people made money when they traveled. And I told her, well, my friend translates translates books and speeches and whatever, and transcribes stuff. And she asked, how much do you make per hoja? Because this is all in Spanish. And I couldn't remember hoja. I thought it sounded familiar, but like she kept asking me, and I told her, well, I couldn't figure out hoja, and I couldn't look it up for some reason. I can't remember. Oh, no, I did look it up eventually. Hoja means pages. So she was wondering how much my friend is paid to translate per book. And I said, it's usually more like time for them. So the amount of hours they work, they'll get paid per hour. And I'm pretty sure my friend, it was like $60 per hour for her work. That was a while ago. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she seemed to like that job a lot because she just got to travel and translate stuff and, yeah, live her life. That was actually the last day of Lima, the Hojas lady who taught me Hoja, and I thanked her for teaching me the word for Hoja. Learning a little bit of Spanish. By the end, I was talking to everyone pretty comfortably, and all the people that day that I saw asked me what my last day in Lima was, and I'd been going to Tommy's for like over a week, and nobody had asked that. And then they all asked it on the same day, and I had to tell each of them, like, well, today's my last day. And I didn't want to tell Tommy or Monica and make a big deal out of it. But I said thank you and paid and said it was nice to know all the regulars who asked me. And that was my last day. I had a good talk with the guy in front of the market. He sells like cheeses and he's always out there. And he's always excited to talk to me, probably just because I am a traveler, you know. And we just talk nothing. He knows my Spanish isn't amazing, and he talks to everybody who walks into the market, unless they're buying cheese and he has to go back to his shop. He just stands in front of the whole market and has like really shallow small talk conversations with everyone. So I always show up and he's like, "Almuerzo, you gonna eat lunch?" And we talk a little bit. The menu's good. It's the best. And then I go in there. So I said bye to him. But that was the last day. I went to Tommy every day because his food was crazy. Like I said, there was like no second place to the food that Tommy made in Lima. Tommy's was the only food that tasted like the Peruvian food I was used to in Cusco, like very high quality, very strong flavors, prepared fairly quickly, and like pretty complex dishes. And everywhere else, like you could get that stuff, but it would be very expensive and kind of not... It just didn't seem local. It seemed like processed food, like they're making it. Even though I know it was fresh, it was just, there was no care going into the food at all. And in Cusco, all of the restaurants care a lot about their foods. But I went to a few Lima restaurants, and none of them seemed to care what they were serving. And the people who were eating it didn't seem to care either. They just, like, inhaled it, whether it was crappy ceviche with a bunch of gristle in it, or like really bland soup, or just, I don't know. It was always unimpressive. It was unimpressive in the few restaurants I went to. Tommy's food, fantastic. I had the best turkey I've had maybe ever. Like, I don't know if I've ever had turkey that good, except the one I made at a Christmas one Christmas. And his pork ribs and beef ribs. His fried chicken is the best fried chicken I have had in memory. I can't remember having better chicken than that. The one I always go to was this Portland restaurant I liked, like as a 20-year-old something. But in terms of fried chicken, Tommy's fried chicken was the best. It was in the Japanese style, so pretty thin and kind of spread out, and then lightly coated with breading and deep fried. But it, again, there wasn't too much oil on it, which Tommy was really good at, and it wasn't super crunchy, but it wasn't really soft, and I don't like the soft too much. But it wasn't too crunchy. There wasn't so much breading that it took away from the flavor of the chicken, which was very soft. And the breading that he used was very flavorful, so there was a bunch of salt and spices and good stuff in there. And it's seriously the best fried chicken I can remember having. Fried chicken specifically, I cannot remember having better fried chicken than that. It was so good. And I wanted to get another piece, but I had already also gotten a piece of pork ribs, I think, with that chicken. Every day I went back there, because the menus rotate daily in Peru. They just get whatever's fresh and then they cook it every day, so there's a rotating menu. So every day I would try another new thing and I'd be like, man, he nailed this too. And he was the only guy in Lima that was that good. There was one other good ceviche guy, but the ceviche, the chicharron, the fried breaded fish, was breaded pretty heavy, and it was inconsistent, and the quality of the squid was inconsistent. The other thing about Tommy was that everything was consistent. It was just always good. And the chicharron was really good. I got it twice, but I always felt really heavy after I ate the chicharron. So, yeah, it's really just Tommy. But that's enough. It was super close to me. I only eat once a day anyway, so I would just go over to Tommy's little restaurant in Mercado Pastor and eat a couple lunches usually, and they were great. And then I'd have enough food, and it was great. I went down to the ocean boardwalk during the night on a walk, and it was much nicer at night than it had been during the day. During the day, the boardwalk just looked kind of abandoned and dusty. Like, I know that's odd to say about a yellow sand beach, but it just looked like there was a thin layer of grit over all of the beach, and there weren't many people near the water or anything. I don't think I saw anyone actually on the beach, but there were stairways from the main avenue leading down to it, but it was a pretty far walk. Like, to get down there, it would have taken 15 minutes to eventually get to the water if you decided to walk from the main avenue of Lima all the way down to the beach. And there looked like there was a little fairground down there, but there just wasn't a lot of activity in the day, and it just wasn't super pretty, so I didn't go down to the beach at Lima. I did go back at night, and because it was night, everything looked nice. You could just see the waves, and there was a really nice walking path that went along the boardwalk. So the area I had walked on, maybe it was just too hot, so I couldn't pay enough attention. I couldn't really enjoy the pathway, but there was a nice pathway to walk along the boardwalk looking over the ocean, and it seemed pretty safe and comfortable, and it was a good walk. It was fun. The first thing I found that was cheaper in Lima than Cusco, and pretty much the only thing ever, was the orange juice, but you do get a smaller portion, and it is not as good as the orange juice in Cusco, so I guess that is fair. Now, the ceviche, I might have mentioned this, the ceviche is so much better in Cusco, but really just at that one spot, I guess? No, you know what? I had a lot of bad ceviche in Lima. It was just they left all of the gristle in, and it was bonito, which is, a type of tuna. It said it was bonito. I don't know if they were talking about the tuna or what, but a lot of the meat in the ceviche they served in Lima, which I had never seen in Cusco, and I got a lot of ceviche in Cusco, was blood-soaked. Like, the red flesh was, and it tasted like blood. That's why I'm assuming the flesh got stained by blood or something. It was really weird. And I tried a few ceviches in Lima also, just to make sure that they were all bad, and they were all pretty bad, especially compared to my favorite place that I mentioned last episode, the Crazy Piranha in Cusco. So, yeah, I like that more. Okay, I met this girl in Lima, and we hung out a few times, but she didn't know a lot about Cusco or Lima. It became apparent very quickly, and it was kind of funny. I said buenas to someone walking down the street, and they're like, buenos. And she said, buenas? Why not buenos dias or buenos tardes? And I was like, oh, in some countries they say it full like that, but in a lot of them it's kind of informal. You just say buenas. And she's from Lima, her whole life, born and raised. She was like, I've never heard that before. And I was like, that's impossible. That's how everyone talks in this country, or at least in Cusco. This was my third day in Lima, so I was like, maybe it's different in this city. But then we walked by 3 other people who said buenas, and I was like, yeah, wait a minute, am I more Peruvian? And then we ate some malaya frita, and she was like, pork is so good. But malaya in Peru, even though it means Malaysian, it's not Malaysian. Malaya just means pork. Malaya means beef. And she said, this pork is so good. And I said, oh, Malaya's beef. And she said, no, Malaya is pork. I said, I'm pretty sure. I asked some people what the difference between Malaya frita and costilla frita, and they said Malaya is always beef in Peru. And she was like, what? It's 100% pork. I know that for sure. And then we asked people, and I looked it up, and it's definitely beef. And she just had no idea, which is pretty surprising. I mean, it's kind of like not knowing what a hamburger is after you lived in, any American city. You live in New York for your whole life, and then someone's like, what are hamburgers made out of? And you're like, pork, I think. No, it's a beef burger. So she didn't know that either, which was suspect. And she was definitely from Lima. There was no reason to doubt that she was actually from Lima. It was just she didn't know very basic things. I never figured that out. It was really odd. There was a third thing. Buenas and the meat. Oh, and the prices. She was very surprised at Tomi's restaurant, which was 12 for an appetizer and entree, which was good for Lima, about almost twice as expensive as Cusco. But when she thought all the prices were like 50 soles, and she was like, that's normally what I pay for my lunch. I was like, 50? I paid 6 in Cusco. 12 and 15 is normal here. And I just showed her the markets around the neighborhood. And I wasn't living in like a bad neighborhood or wherever things were cheaper. That was pretty normal because I walked all around the city and the prices were all 15 soles. And I had no idea why she was paying 50 soles, or if she was trying to impress me by saying, look how much I spend on lunch or something. But it was just very odd because she said, no, 50 is about the normal price for any lunch in the city. And that's 3 times as expensive as most of the lunches. Yeah, that was the only person I met from Peru who didn't seem to know anything about their own city or the rest of Peru. It was so odd that it keeps sticking out of my head because it was just so odd. In one of the markets, there was this huge guy walking around, and he had a shirt that said Genial Wolf, like cool wolf riding a bicycle, and it was like the best shirt ever. And I said, oh, cool shirt, like Genial Camisa, something like that. And he looked really confused and then looked down at his shirt, and he just nodded gruffly and then kept walking. But it was a great shirt, and I wanted him to know it was great, but he didn't realize he was wearing it, I guess. So I like the song Go Your Own Way. I heard the Song Exploder episode about it, and I was kind of into that. And then when I was listening to him explain the song, I was like, that's cool. And then I listened to the song, I was like, yeah, that is a catchy tune. You know, I've heard it my whole life, but I never really thought about it or anything. Has to do with him and Stevie Nicks not working out. And then I was like really listened to the lyrics, and I was like, this is a really like kind of passive aggressive whiny song. Like saying it's not fair, like he's doing the right thing and Stevie was doing the wrong thing. Like they split up, but the lyrics are about how if she would just let him show her the world, he could give the world to her. And if she would just open her heart to the world, then everything would be okay. And it's basically just blaming the other person and saying it's not fair that you don't like me. Instead of go your own way. But it's not go your own way. It's fine then. If you don't like me, like, I guess you just don't get it. Because you want your independence. And I want you to be with me. It sounds a lot more petulant than I realized once I really started listening to the lyrics. In the verses leading up to the chorus. But it does, I mean, the song, it sounds great. There's no denying that. It's just I was surprised at how passive-aggressive the lyrics actually sounded to me when I looked at them. I was invited by someone else to a dance, like a disco at a Burger Cat. It was like a celebration for their end of year for their dance troupe. And they had like a little disco ball and some prizes they handed out. And it was all ages. It wasn't a crazy drunken bash. But it was pretty fun just to see a dance troupe and how into it they were. And I got to watch a couple dances for a while, and that was fun. And we just hung out for a little while, and then I went, but they invited me to, they had a big dance exhibition in a few more days. And I went, and it was pretty cool. I don't like traditional dance as much as I like modern dance, but this was giant choreography, and everybody was really into it, and there were like 4 or 5 different dance schools doing the exhibitions, and it was pretty fast-paced, too. There was a lot going on. But everything in Peru is done late, like really late. They eat late. They do everything late. So this dance exhibition wasn't scheduled to start until something like 9:30 p.m., like really late. And because it's Peru, it didn't start until 10:30. And then all the dances started, and they occurred every 5 to 10 minutes, a new one with a new dance troupe, and they just rotated and changed costumes. And it was a pretty big affair. It was like a pretty big thing, and it was really cool to see. And the people from the dance troupe who invited me to their dinner the other night were nice and happy to see me. And they gave me a free ticket too. That's how I got in. So I just got to see this cool cultural exhibition, dance recital, exhibition. Yeah. And then I was on my way to the airport, and I was in the car, and looking out the car, I saw another like trash 3-wheel truck or whatever driving down the street with some trash in it. And I had a trash bag hanging off the side, and it just slammed into one of these cars parked on the side of the road. And that was kind of worrisome. That might have been my last day when I saw the giant exhibition, the big dance recital thing. And then I think the next day I was off to the airport to hop over to Hawaii before I head to the Philippines, which I'll probably just be going straight to the Philippines. I thought I'd have a month in between, but I might hang out in Hawaii for a little while, just not to go too fast. Stop at the beaches again, hang out. I've started a new community I might have mentioned on Lemmy, so it's just called Travel. crazypeople.online/c/travel. Yes, I did mention that. So it's a new one, and it's pretty cool. It's already gaining it already has more than half of the subscribers of the old one that took me like 9 months to build up. So I'm going to keep adding informative posts because I feel like it's fun sharing stuff, and obviously that's much easier if I can just share a picture of the ocean or whatever. But the informative posts are what people want to hear about on a travel community, I think, until they start asking their own questions. And I do have lots of stuff that I've written before that shouldn't be too difficult to, like healthcare, international schools, best backpacking practices, best backpacking countries. So I do have lots of information about travel, and people do seem to get into that. So I'm going to try to put a informative post every couple of days, every 4 days, whatever. Just more regularly, because during the old community that was named after my username, it was just sharing. Well, that's not true. It was mostly sharing, and then maybe once a month there would be a true information post. But I think it's more fair to subscribers and members of the community, people interested in travel, if they just get more hard information. Sharing is great. If you want to go on that community and share anything you want, it doesn't have to be serious or anything. Just share a picture of a dog while you were traveling or whatever. My dog wants to travel. That's fine. But I'm going to, since I have responsibility for this community, I'm going to put some more informative posts. And yeah, it's funny though, starting over from scratch, because I'm getting all the comments I used to get with the old community that died down after it got bigger. Right now it's still beginning out, so people are like, I don't think that's the correct price. It's actually $200. And I have to be like, okay, I have to remove the comment because that's misinformation. Here is the link to that correct thing. So I'm going through that, but it looks like I'll get through that phase much faster this time than last time, because it's already at 90 subscribers. And the whole time, the old one only got 140 subscribers. So either those two first posts I put up on the travel community are really influential, or I think because it's named Travel now, instead of named Bit of a Rambler, people are more comfortable subscribing to it as a travel community. I'm pretty excited about building it up again, to be honest, and I'm really happy with the way the first couple have gone. And I like writing the informative posts anyway. They just take so much more time, and I have to be really careful because I'm super strict about sharing misinformation on those communities. So my information has to definitely be accurate and sourced every time I put something up there, which takes time. But then there's great info up there, and a couple people have already benefited from it and sent thank you notes, and I'm happy about that, and I'm happy people can live better lives through traveling. Oh, jacket luggage. So to get to Hawaii, I had 4 legs of my trip, and 3 of them didn't allow any baggage at all. Hawaiian Airlines still allows baggage, which is like the only airline that still does that without charging you $1 billion. But if I wanted to bring my bag, my rucksack on board the plane for the first 3 legs through the US, it would have been like $80 per flight, something. It would have been some dumb amount of money. for a rucksack that's pretty light. I have less than like 20 pounds of stuff. I do not have a lot of heavy items. But I don't even want to pay that $80 per flight, so I have my jacket luggage. I have sewn, when I was in Cusco, I sewed extra pockets into the jacket, so I sewed 2 more. And now I have a total of 2 outside hip pockets, 2 inside hip pockets, 2 inside breast pockets, and a big back pocket that I can put all my t-shirts in. So that's, 6, 7, 8, 9 pockets? And I can fit pretty much everything into my jacket now. And it looks pretty normal from the outside, a little puffy, but it's a puffer jacket. So I just put everything in there and then carried my backpack on the plane and no problem. So jacket luggage, if you don't want to pay these crazy suitcase fees and, you don't have too much stuff, jacket luggage, just putting some inside pockets on the inside of your jacket is a really easy way to do it. I haven't had any trouble with it. One flight attendant I remember looked at and he was like, really? When I went to Laos, but that was it. And he didn't stop me or anything because they can't weigh you or your clothing. They can only weigh your baggage. So jacket luggage, great. Got me to Hawaii without paying any money on 4 different flights. The flight attendant was pissed. I can't remember if it was the Atlanta one or what. All those trips blurred together to me. But as soon as we got into America and the flight attendants were so angry. They were snapping back at, especially one of them. She was snapping back at every passenger and she was like, "When you sit down, we can go. We can't go until you sit down." But it was still active boarding. People there wasn't just one person standing up. "Can I go to the bathroom?" "Yeah, you can go to the bathroom, but if you go to the bathroom, then we can't go. So you have to go fast, okay? Quickly. Rapido." She said that a couple times. It must have been the one from Lima, because she did say rapido, which was obviously the only Spanish word she knew. And it sucked. It was so listening to her be rude to all of these people. As soon as you cross the border into the U.S., all the flight attendants become U.S. and they're just, this one especially, was just extremely exasperated. And it was weird. It was really weird because she was so angry. And all the other U.S. attendants seemed pretty upset as well. So maybe something happened before. I know one thing was weird. Spirit Airlines doesn't provide water. You're not allowed to have water on Spirit Airlines. You're not allowed to bring water on Spirit Airlines either. If you bring water on, they make you dump it out. And then they don't give you water on the plane for a 5-hour flight, something like that. It was a longer flight, and I didn't know that was legal even, but I thought that was insane because I had 3 legs with Spirit, and all 3 of them did not let you bring water on the plane. And even if it was through the gate, you're already waiting at the gate, you're not allowed to fill up your water bottle and then bring it on the plane. You had to empty it out. And then once you were on the plane, they didn't give you any water. They were coming with the drinks tray and they were like, "Do you want anything?" I said, "Oh, just water's fine." She's like, "I don't have water." And I was like, "What?" "I have club soda." And I was like, "I guess club soda." And then the other guy reached out his hand. He didn't even say anything. He just rubbed his fingers together like they were 90s gangsters or 40s gangsters. And after a couple times, I was like, "What do you want?" And he was like, "Pay, I can take your card here." And I was like, "What?" And the person next to me explained that these were the paid drinks. So I was about to pay $8 for a club soda. And I was like, "Oh, then I don't need a drink, I guess. This is insane. You don't have free water?" No. Spirit Airlines does not give out free water anymore, which was shocking to find. It seems insane to me. But it happened, of course, right after I crossed into the U.S., and I was like, of course they don't. Of course the U.S. doesn't give people water. Oh, man, I had this big conversation with my friends here because they were asking these questions about third world countries and first world countries. And I was like, well, let's just define those. How would you define a third world country? And they're like, well, you don't have food and houses and access to healthcare. And I was like, okay, let's look at what the poorest country like Cambodia has versus what the U.S. has. And Cambodia comes out ahead in transportation, They have food security for sure. There's always a local market where you can get. And they're like, oh my God, are we living in the third world country? And I was like, yeah, dude. Every time I come back here, it's crazy how privileged US Americans think they are compared to all other countries in the world, where all other countries in the world, they have far fewer homeless people. There's just so much more housing security, food security, transportation security, education security, healthcare. They just don't have to worry about all of these things that US Americans are clinging to by their fingernails, or just like women don't have access to in the US anymore. I'm not going to get too soapboxy about it, but it was a pretty enlightening conversation for my friends living here in Hawaii, especially because there's a lot of rich people living here in Hawaii. And talking to them, they just, in their head, the US has food security and healthcare and housing. In their head, it has it, but we talked for maybe 15 minutes, and then they were like, oh, shoot, we don't have food security. There's tons of people going hungry. We don't have housing security. Rent's insane, obviously, and like 3 people own all of the houses in the country. We don't have education. US Americans can't afford to go. So, yeah, it was a good conversation. It's good having those conversations with US Americans whenever I stop by here, but I have to be so careful because US Americans have built up their country so much in their heads that even if they're struggling day to day, they think they're living in a first world country. Like, even if they don't have access to food or affordable housing or healthcare or education, it's just bonkers. It's always bonkers stopping back in the US for a little while and seeing people like really struggling and then being like, thank God I'm not in China. And it's like, well, in China, they all have their housing. They all have unlimited great food. They all have access to education. They all have quality healthcare. And I have a huge problem with Xi Jinping. China is not a perfect country, but any place they say, oh, at least I'm not in, what if I was living in Malaysia or something? It's like, well, they can all eat. They never have to worry about their grocery bills. Like, food is affordable. Governments make food and housing and healthcare affordable to their citizens. It's pretty much only in the US where that's not the point of civil amenities. In all other countries, the point of having healthcare and housing and a government to distribute these services is so that all the citizens can afford and have access to those civil amenities. In the States, the only motive is profit. They don't provide healthcare in the US for healthcare. They provide healthcare to make a profit. In most other countries, healthcare is provided so that citizens have access to healthcare. Same with education and other basic civil amenities. Okay, soapbox. Sorry, I get really into that. There was just this light in the eyes, and they're like, wait a minute, are we living in the third world country? I was like, yeah, if you ask most of the people, if you just compare the access they have to basic civil amenities, yeah, the U.S. is the third world country. I mean, the U.S. doesn't have bullet trains, it doesn't have a rail system. That's wild. That's wild, man. Travel for your health and for your education, and travel for your food security. I got really lucky on, I think, the second flight. The lady between us really wanted an aisle seat. I think she had claustrophobia or something. So she got to move to an aisle seat. And it was a full flight, but the aisle seat guy wasn't there, so she got to go to the aisle seat. And then it was a full flight, so the only seat on the plane that was left open was the one in the middle between me and the other guy in the other aisle seat. So we had a little extra space on that flight, and it was pretty nice. Oh, it was kind of funny. I was in the airport walking around in Atlanta, wherever I was, I don't know. But there was a guy looking for the men's bathroom, but he was standing in front of the women's bathroom. And he'd like walk in a little bit and then look to his right and left and then like step back out. And he's like, wait. But he looked really confused. He didn't look like he was creeping in the bathroom or anything. He was just looking for the women's bathroom or the men's bathroom. But it was only the women's bathroom. And he like looked left to right. And then he walked away from the women's bathroom, but didn't see another entrance. And it was only like 20 feet down, but he would walk maybe 10 feet down maximum and then look around left to right and go back in. So yeah, he was very confused, and he tried to walk in again. I was like, hey, it's over there. It's right there. It's the blue one. There's a totally separate entrance, but it's 20 feet down that way instead of 10 feet. And he's like, oh, okay, thank you. Actually, he just said, okay, bathroom, and then walked to the men's bathroom and went. So I think, because usually you walk in and you go left if you're lady and right if you're a guy in a lot of airport bathrooms. I thought maybe he was used to that. He didn't realize there was a huge other section. But it was really funny how he kept walking back in and then walking back out, like just staring at the, women's bathroom picture of a stick figure woman. Like, is that? No. But he kept trying anyway. It reminded me of animals in a zoo where they walk forward and then backwards and forward and backwards, like 3 steps at a time, just like locked in this pattern. He kind of seemed really confused by the separate entrance and was locked in that pattern. So I'm glad I could help. Okay, this was weird also. I was waiting on the plane and we were sitting, but I was the first one on. I don't know, they went backward groups that time, so I got on for the first group. And not even half the plane was filled up, and there was a line of passengers getting on the plane behind this one old guy, and he stopped and like turned to a flight attendant on the plane, in the plane. He was walking to his seat down the aisle, and he's like, excuse me, are we boarding now? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're getting on the plane. They called us all to board. There are passengers. We're all putting our bags in overhead compartments. You're obviously boarding. Why did you stop to ask? That was the strangest thing I had heard all day until I heard the super angry lady. I guess Spirit Airlines not letting... There was a lot of weird stuff on this trip, actually. But I thought that was really funny because there's like 200 people around him boarding the plane. He was like, hey, are we boarding now? Yeah, man, you're boarding right now. You're in the middle of it, buddy. Then I got to Hawaii and I kicked a toad accidentally. That's a good place to stop, right? I was walking up the street to go to the supermarket, and I was walking kind of quickly. It was evening. I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I saw something in the middle of the road, but it didn't look like dog crap, so I ignored it. And then I don't know if it moved or what, but I swung my right foot forward and punted something that once it was airborne, I realized was a toad. I was just walking quickly, so I didn't actually kick it. I just kind of, the momentum of my leg swung into it and punted it out into the air, and it flew like 10 feet or something and then landed and hopped away. And I was like, sorry, man. Sorry for kicking you, Hawaii toad. And that's fun. That's a good way to stop this, kicking a toad. I hope you're having a great day. I am. I've been having a lot of fun in Hawaii. I've been here a few days now. I've gone to a couple beaches. I had some really good food from Wailua General Store. I'll have to write that down so I can talk about that in the next episode, because their food, I'm going to talk about mostly that probably in the next one. There's so much good food there. And yeah, there's rainbows every day. I'm in friggin' Hawaii. And then off to Southeast Asia next. Hope you're having a great day. You can talk to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com or in the travel communities that I have. Well, travel community, just the one is active now. crazypeople.online/c/travel. And you can post or ask questions or share or just talk to me. Have a great rest of your day.